Yeah, I've worked in franchising since 2009. So I've worked running franchise businesses for investors in the learning and development sector, education. I've then also worked in the home care sector. I've worked in the tech sector. And I think for me, I'd seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it got to the point where I didn't want to be employed anymore. I just seen so many mistakes being made and I wanted to do something about it. And when I was sitting there being interviewed by the British Franchise Association, actually, um, somebody said to me, "Why don't you become a consultant?" So that's how I got into consulting. I opened up a consultancy. I wanted to see what troubles franchisors were facing, franchisees were facing, and to try and put together a support model. Very quickly grew my profile within the first year because I just didn't want to do what everybody else was doing. I wanted to mentor and support people, more hands-on support. Anyway, I got recognised by one of the leading franchise consultancies in the UK. I also represent them. And after COVID happened, I found myself a niche because there just wasn't a female franchise consultant in the UK specialising in the food and beverage sector. So I've pigeonholed myself in that sector, and I work with multiple brands now as head of their franchise development or director of their franchise development, and tend to work with about 3 brands, but do take part in lots of sort of interviews and podcasts and stage appearances to talk about franchising in general. And I do have an overview from both sides, from franchisee side and also from franchisor side as well. When you start up your own business, you're always going to be wondering how you start a business, how you then market that business, what type of business do you want to open, the pricing points, and then the accounting and the finance side of things. You end up wearing one hat, and if you're not in a position to recruit a team or work with a team and you're doing it all yourself, it just becomes way too much. And you're not able to focus on growing your business, because if you're not doing the accounting or the finances or doing the admin parts of it, you're focusing on something completely different. Franchising takes away that entire headache. And in fact, in the UK, franchising is not as popular as it is in the US. In the US, 1 in 7 businesses are franchises. In the UK, people are getting to know franchising. They're understanding the benefits of franchising. Over 90% of people that have franchises are successful in comparison to having your own business. Many new business startups fail within the first 3 years. With franchising, that 90% plus success rate is phenomenal. And NatWest and the British Franchise Association come together and they actually have a survey. And this is where a lot of this data comes from. So with franchising, I guess what you're buying into is a proven business model. Somebody has created an amazing business that's done really well. They're generating profit. There's demand for it potentially in other locations. They've been approached by people who are interested in setting up the same, or they've just seen something and thought, I want to scale this. I have the ambition to scale this in different areas. I now need people from those areas who know the territory very well to take a franchise off me, but they must believe in the brand. They must believe in following processes. So this business model has been set up for you to follow. You are still your own business owner. You are still the business owner. More than likely, you have an exclusive territory in which only you can operate for that brand. You then also have the additional support from head office. But also, if you're buying into something that's established, then you're going to have an existing network of people like yourselves who started and had been through that same journey. They come from different backgrounds. They've completely changed their minds, turned their lives around and started a business on the back of a franchise model. And you have that level of support, you have training, you have guidance on how to do your marketing. There are systems, there are processes in place. So you're not having to invest in these things yourself. Yeah. So all the know-how on finances and everything comes from the franchisor. And that's why franchisees are far more successful, because they can hit the ground running. And you're not doing it on your own. That's the great joy of it. You're not on your own. You're with a team, even though it's your own business. When you first start looking at franchises, there are some key things that you need to think about. It's number one, what is it that you're passionate about? That's really quite crucial. You are going to have people who just want to go into a sector because of the returns they get. But actually, you want to be passionate about it. So what is it that you're passionate about? How much time do you have to commit to this? Yeah. Are you going to be providing the service, or are you going to take on a business and then recruit people who will provide the service? So there are different types of franchises. Owner operated, which is the person that buys the franchise, that operates that franchise, or there's a management franchise. Many of the food and beverage brands are all management franchises because the staff come in and run day-to-day operations. And then the franchisees in the background running other businesses or growing their portfolio of franchises. Mm-hmm. So you've got to consider where you want to sit in that business and how much time you're going to give to it. The most important thing, I believe, is the capital. How much capital have you got to invest? So you don't want to put in all your savings, but you want to have a good amount of money to invest into a franchise. And that's going to vary. What you invest is going to vary franchise to franchise, sector to sector. So you want to look at the financial aspects of it. Are you happy to get any sort of finance? You know, if you had £10,000, is that all you've got? Are you happy to top that up with some finance? And a franchisor can typically help you connect with high street banks, where they will lend you 50 to 70%, dependent on how established that franchise is. Yeah. So you want to look at your budget, because that's going to be very significant before you even start looking. It's how much have I got to play with here? What am I interested in doing? And then you start looking. There are plenty of places online you can go and start searching for franchises, starting with the British Franchise Association. There are other platforms where they advertise franchises, such as Franchise Direct, Point Franchise, Franchise Supermarket, What Franchise, Businesses for Sale, Franchise Sales. You just have to sort of Google franchise opportunities and you will come across these sites.
Is one any better than the other, in your opinion?
No, they all vary. Some cater more to the kids market, some more to food and beverage, but they will cover a number of different sectors, and you'll be able to filter that by sector, by the amount of capital, the investment required. One thing to always be cautious of, I know we are going to be talking about the sort of how much they cost, etc. What you see online when you're investigating the costs are not always exactly what it's going to cost you in the end in total. Sometimes you're just seeing the beginnings of what that might cost you as an investment. So just be a little bit mindful of that. But plenty of platforms online where you can get information. There are a few there. I mean, when you're in a restricted territory, you've got boundaries. It means you can only market within those boundaries. You can't go outside of that. So that does become a little bit restrictive. The other thing is you have to follow the processes. This is one of the reasons you buy into franchising. It's not to go in there and completely change everything. There's a process to follow, and you need to follow that process. And if you're really entrepreneurial, extremely ambitious, and have got so many ideas and like to have that control yourself, you're going to find it very difficult to fit into a franchise. So if a franchise is for somebody who doesn't want the headache of doing it all themselves, yes, they want their own business, but they want the support to go with it, and they want to really invest in a brand that they're really fond of, that they're really passionate about, the sector that they're really passionate about. It can vary, because some of these children's franchises, like kids activities, they can start from 5,000. And then you're investing so much more. You can go into up to 500,000 or more. So there isn't a small range. It's quite wide, because there are working from home opportunities. There are having a mobile van and being a man or a woman in a van business. Yeah. Or you've got bricks and mortar businesses, which are obviously more costly. So there are different variations. Obviously, a lot of people who are now working from home, have children, want an easy lifestyle, choose the working from home opportunity. And there are lots of variations where you can have a home office, just sit at your desk at home and work away and run a business from a laptop. Where with the kids sector activities businesses, you're working with kids when they're outside of school, so it's after school hours, weekends. So the daytime is probably where you focus on your business development and get your admin done and your marketing done and that sort of thing. So there's just so many different varieties of franchises there, including pets. We talked about pets, cat hotels, dog walking businesses. There's some amazing opportunities there for anybody that is a pet lover, loves working with kids, loves working with the elderly, not just in home care, where it's far more expensive to set up a franchise, because again, you're going to be having an office, you're going to have staff, so you are probably spending 60, 70, 80,000 straight up front. But you could have, there are some new franchises out there where it's simply going out to care homes and really supporting and rehabilitating the elderly and the disadvantaged and the vulnerable, and you're just playing games with them. It's all about sensory and motion. So there's some interesting sort of concepts around that, because the home care market, the care market in general, is huge in franchising, as is fitness, as is food, as is the kids sector. That you can just, every sector you're going to find some sort of a smaller model in comparison to having it all. You're going to find a smaller variation, lower investment. Your process starts from when you first speak to typically a franchise development person. You get the opportunity to ask those initial questions that come to you, such as, what is the key investment? What am I overall spending? Because your franchise fee, sometimes that's what you're seeing online, is it starts from 5,000, but actually your setup costs are going to be 20,000, for example. So you want to get the costings right. You have to understand your commitment. What is your role as a franchisee? How does that model work? And that's a really important question to ask right up front. You want to understand the level of support they're going to provide you through the different stages of building up, launching, and then post-franchising. You also want to ask them about the financial projections. What are you going to be earning over 3 to 5 years? What does that look like? And you should receive a spreadsheet, some financial projections on the back of that meeting. That should give you an idea of what your objectives, basically, month on month, of what you should be achieving, if not above what's been predicted, because it just does need to be pretty conservative when they're giving you these figures. So you should get those projections. But you want to ask about, are there any franchises that have failed, and what reason have they failed? And a franchisor should be pretty transparent in telling you and the reasons why. What are the challenges they face as franchisees? What challenges do your franchise network face? What is the future of franchising? What is it that you're planning to do in the future? And a key thing, if you want to, say if you've got so much competition and you're looking at a sector that there's just so many different brands, what is your USP as a business? What is it that differentiates you? Because there's so much competition, how are you going to generate business alongside all the competitors within your territory? So there's so many questions on questions that you can ask based on the responses that you get, but you want to just understand those basics first.
Yeah.
And then as you go through that process, you should have the opportunity to connect with existing franchisees, to understand things from their point of view. I would recommend that you not just pick up the phone, arrange a phone call with a franchisee, but you actually connect with sometimes. I always think neighboring franchisees can be a little bit concerned about you coming into a neighboring territory if there's no boundaries.
Yeah.
So try and speak to a wider range of franchisees outside of your sort of neighboring areas.
Yeah.
Ask them why they joined, what was attractive to them about the proposition. Have the financial objectives been met? What are the challenges they've faced? You know, especially during COVID, we've had the pandemic now. So always a great question is, what level of support did you get when times were really difficult? What are the people like in the franchise headquarters? And do they enjoy what they're doing? Because they've got to enjoy what they're doing. Are they planning on staying on in the franchise once the franchise agreement comes up for renewal? So you want to sit down, have a cup of coffee, have a drink with them, and you want to see them face to face. So you've got quality, good hour with them to ask all these questions.
Yeah, or better, I mean, we always encourage people to go and shadow, but I agree with your point entirely. You're not going to shadow your competitor that's opposite down the road, right? You're going to have to be slightly further afield.
Yeah, some can get really worried about somebody coming in next door, especially if they've been given rights to operate in that area until somebody else comes in. Depends on how that model's been set. But you want to speak to a mix of people, not just the best, but you want to speak to those that have had challenges. And you want the franchisor you want to sense that they're being very open with you and very transparent. Because I think that's quite important to suss out that body language.
Very, very important.
Yeah.